Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Susie, and on my channel I like to do DIY. I also love to go thrift store shopping, and I flip those items or upcycle them to sell in my retail booth. Today's video is going to be a thrift flip video where I take a lot of these items that I have thrifted or had and upcycle them to sell in my booth. Thank y'all so much for watching. Let's go ahead and get started. So I have been obsessed with looking at the Anthropologie website at their home decor, and I cannot believe that people will pay these prices for items. So I found this pretty gold basket that I thought was so pretty on the Anthropologie website, and I set out to find something similar. Now, I'm pretty sure that this is like a shower organizer, but it was very sturdy and a very thick metal. So all I had to do was clean it up really well and spray painted it with a gold metallic spray paint. And I actually like this one better, I think, than the one that I saw on the Anthropologie website that was $228. And that's all it took was a little bit of spray paint. And I styled this shelf with bathroom stuff, but it would work for any room in the house. And currently I'm not going to sell it. I'm using it in my booth to store the IOD ink, sprayers, ink pads, and smaller items like that. Back to the Anthropologie website, and I came across this lampshade. It immediately put me in the mind of the Paradise Paint Inlay by IOD. So that's just what I'm gonna do. I have this lampshade, and I'm gonna attempt to put the paint inlay on the lampshade. Now this lampshade is kind of like a pleather, like a faux leather on it. It has some texture. So the Dixie Belle paint went right on in one coat, covered nicely. This is drop cloth, I believe, that I'm using. So I just put one coat of paint on the lampshade, and then I am going to cut the paint inlays to match up the best I can. I always, y'all know how I am, I always pick the hardest way to do something. So a straight lampshade would have been a lot easier, but y'all know me, I have to do things the hard way. So here I'm just cutting the edges off of the paint inlay. Anytime you use them, you'll want to do that so you can line up your patterns. And I'm just gonna lay the paint inlays out to try to mark where I want to cut them and cut them up to match as best as I can. It's not going to be perfect, but that is part of the charm of DIY. Sometimes it's not perfect, but there'll never be nothing like it again. With the paint inlays, you want to put a layer of paint where you are going to lay your inlay, and you want to do this in sections. So you just put your paint on, and then you lay the paint inlay in it. And I did figure out with this one that you do have some time to manipulate the inlay. It doesn't immediately come off. So you want to smooth it out on your lampshade or whatever you're using it on, and get as many wrinkles out as you can. The good thing about this lampshade is it was textured, so the wrinkles kind of gave it a little bit more character and just looked like part of the shade. And then once you get it laid on, you want to wet it. Now I'm using a sponge here. That was just the easiest way. I couldn't really spray because it would activate the paint on the other parts of the paint inlay. So I just used a sponge and went over each individual part after I got it done. And now I went through the whole thing, and like I said, it's not perfect. I wasn't able to get everything lined up perfect, but with the color of the drop cloth underneath it, you really couldn't tell very much. And I just went all the way around the lampshade, rubbing it down, and then using the sponge to wet the inlay. After the inlays had dried, then it's time to remove them. So the next day I used the sponge and just dampened the inlays slightly and then easily pulled them off. And this inlay transferred beautifully, and you can kind of see the wrinkles in there, but remember, some of that is also from the lampshade. And you want to be very careful not to re-wet where you have already pulled off, because this is paint and it will smear. So you really just want to rub on the paper and not get it off the paper when you are wetting the inlays. Now remember, you can save your inlays and reuse them several times. I may not be able to use these whole because, as you can see, I had to cut them up pretty small. But is this not the most interesting lampshade you have ever seen? I love the way it turns out. I did do a couple of coats of spray sealer on top of it, and I think it just turned out beautiful. Do y'all remember the huge embroidery hoop that Mom got at an estate sale a couple of months ago? I'm finally getting around to doing something with it, and I thought that it would be a beautiful piece of art. And I had some drop cloth. It'd been folded up, so I ran the iron over it and cut it down to size to fit in the drop cloth. And I'm going to be using the new IOD Transfer, the Whispering Willow transfer. This is so pretty. It's got floral, it's got the cutest little woodland creatures all in it, and I am loving it. Look at all the precious little animals on this transfer pack. There's a fox and a rabbit and a porcupine and a skunk and all the cute mushrooms, and I decided that I want a pretty big floral, so I'm going to use this one, and I'm also going to put a bird on it. This was it's a little bit harder to transfer onto fabric, but it does work. You just have to give it a little bit more elbow and rub on it pretty hard, and it will eventually come off. After I get my transfers on, I'm going to put the fabric in the embroidery hoop, cut off the excess on the back, and then staple it all in place into the wood embroidery hoop. And finally, I'm going to put a sawtooth hanger right on the back of it so I can hang it up. And that's that. That's how easy that one was. It was in my booth for 2 days and sold for $22. I had several of the cabinet doors left over from when we remodeled our kitchen. We lost some cabinets and we took out a whole bathroom vanity that had these doors in it. So I'm going to paint a couple of them with the Rethunk Junk paint. This one is the color Cotton. Since it is a white color, it takes 2 to 3 coats to cover, and I do the front and the back. And for the other one, I'm going to paint a sage green with the Rethunk Junk, and it covered really well, and it took a couple of coats. I forgot to mention that I filled in the holes from the hardware with the Durham's water putty and let it dry, and then sanded those smooth. Remember, this paint is self-leveling and has a built-in sealer, so after a couple of coats it was ready for my transfer. I did not even have to seal it before applying the transfer. And I am going to be going back to the Brocante transfer booklet. I put the birds on one item and it sold pretty quickly, so I wanted to get another bird and I wanted to use the rooster. I'm not going to use the bees on this one, so I'm just cutting the bees off, lining it up in the center, and then rubbing it on. I cannot even tell y'all how many projects that I have done using this Brocante booklet. There are 2 sets of these birds in it where you can line them all up in a row together, or you can use them separately. I'm going to be using them separately here. I do have probably half of that booklet left almost, so it goes a long way. So I'm just going to transfer the birds, and then I had those bees that I just cut out with the roosters, and I had a little bit of French wording that I'd saved from another piece, and I'm just going to put the bees on the bottom and the French wording below the birds, and I'm going to call this one the birds and the bees, and I think it is so precious how it turned out, and I love this sage color. I'm just going to put some sawtooth hangers on the back so these can be hung as art, and look how beautiful they turned out. I love everything about the Brocante transfer booklet. What do you guys think? For my last project of this video, several months ago, I thrifted this child's table and chair set for $10. There was 3 chairs. One of them had been chewed up pretty badly by an animal, so I'm just going to be using 2 here, and I had to do a good job sanding because you can see there is a pretty good bit of damage on the side of them, so I sanded them smooth as best as I could, and I'm using just the little oscillating tool here rather than my handheld sander, so I could fit in between all the spindles and such. I had a lot of sanding to do, and I wanted everything to be just as smooth as I could. And for this project, I am going to be spray painting it with the sage green color with the Rethunk Junk. Spray painting is not my preferred method, but I also had a rocking chair to paint, and when you have that many spindles, hand painting is really hard. So I went ahead and bit the bullet and hooked up the air sprayer and watered down my paint and got a really smooth finish on all of these projects. I'm going back to the Whispering Willows transfer. I love all the mushrooms and the animals. So I just lined everything up on the tabletop like I wanted it, and then went to town transferring. This is the paint that has the built-in sealer. The transfers practically fall off onto the paint. It didn't take me long at all. This is sped up, but it still was a very short process. I just rubbed them all on, and then you will see me take a pair of scissors and just making sure that the transfer is cut there at the where the edges of the wood come together, and get it all on there. And then I decided I needed just a little bit more floral at the top, and I also stamped the word adventure on with the typesetting stamps in lowercase, and I just love how this turned out. Now, originally I bought this in going to use for my grandsons. However, it's going to be a little bit before they're old enough to be using it, so I decided to go ahead and sell it. One thing that I have learned in the resale business is you can't keep everything that you love, and you will also always come across something again. So I'm going to go ahead and sell this one, and just be on the lookout for another one for when they get a little bit older. Because this is a children's table, I gave it 3 really good coats of a top coat. So now it is extremely durable and extremely precious. What do y'all think about how this table and chairs turned out? I went ahead and put another couple of animals on the chairs, and I am just obsessed with this chair and table. That is all the projects in today's video. Y'all let me know in the comments below which one was your favorite. And I want to thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you would subscribe and come back. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.